This is Midnight Sun. As an activist, I joined the climate movement in 2014 with the People's Climate March, of which I was one of the organizers in Edinburgh, the Scottish capital. At the time I knew we were facing a serious climate and species extinction problem, but I didn't know how bad things were. It was at the end of 2018 that I became aware of the situation. In November 2018, I registered on the website of Extinction Rebellion, the British-born climate social movement. I registered on the website of Extinction Rebellion UK. I was one of the people who started Extinction Rebellion in Spain, as I think I mentioned in the first program. And one of the first jobs that I made was to translate the slideshow of the initial talk with which Extinction Rebellion was trying to raise awareness of the problem around the world. The title of the talk was Heading for Extinction and What to Do About It, and it was given on video by Gail Bradbrook, one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion. It was in doing that translation that I saw the scientific reports of how serious the climate situation really was. And I confess that that day, translating the slides of the talk, I burst into tears. Literally. At 61, I burst into tears and said, and excuse me for the expression, but that is what came out of me at the time. I said, we are fucked. I didn't know then that what I had felt had already been given a name: eco-anxiety. Someone had invented it a year earlier, in 2017, at the American Psychological Association. It was the first time I felt eco-anxiety. And the last, I have to say, the last one. This is a problem that is already affecting many people, since we see climate change as a reality, as something that is already there. Eco-anxiety. Others talk about eco-depression or solastalgia, but eco-anxiety is the most commonly used term. What is eco-anxiety and what do we know about it? There are scientific studies on eco-anxiety, and that is what we are going to talk about today. What can we do to address eco-anxiety? If you think this program does not concern you, you may be wrong. You may be making a mistake, because as the climate crisis becomes part of our lives, you too may end up feeling eco-anxiety. That is why there is a need for a program like this, a program that some people may not want to listen to. But we should prepare ourselves for the times ahead. Here we will try to offer you some useful tips. Let's start Midnight Sun.
Midnight Sun, directed by Grian Cutanda.
Welcome to Midnight Sun. Welcome to the tribe of all colors. I was not planning to talk about eco-anxiety today. I had planned to do so later. But I came across a tweet by Antonio Turiel on 6th October, and I suddenly realized that I had to talk about eco-anxiety as soon as possible. Antonio Turiel is a Spanish scientist with a PhD in theoretical physics from the Autonomous University of Madrid and a researcher at the Spanish National Center for Scientific Research. He is also a science communicator. Through social networks, Antonio has been giving information for years about climate change and the civilizational collapse we are heading for if we don't move. He's been talking about resource depletion, peak oil, until peak oil came. He's been talking about the global implications of climate change on economies, on countries, what all this is going to do to the planet. And Antonio Turiel has been insisting that we have to decrease economically, that the economic ideology of eternal growth is leading us to extinction. And he insists that the capitalist system, as the productivist system that it is, has been a failure, just like communism, which is also a productivist system. This could bring us to the worldview issue, which we talked about last week, and we could point out that ultimately it has been the further failure of the modernist worldview, which brought us very good things, but passed its expiry date. As the French philosopher Bruno Latour said, the climate and extinction emergency is a direct product of the modernist worldview. Antonio Turiel has also written several books, including Petrocalipsis in 2020 and The Autumn of Civilization in 2022, together with journalist Juan Bordera. Well, Antonio Turiel posted a tweet a few days ago in which there was a picture of a graffiti on a wall that read, "Tomorrow I might have to sit in front of my children and tell them that we were defeated, that we didn't know how to win. But I couldn't look them in the eyes and tell them that they live like this, because I didn't have the courage to fight." On this photo, Antonio commented, "Under the current circumstances, we have basically two options. To live lying to our children about the future, their future, or to tell the truth to the powerful, even if they don't want to hear it." That same day, shortly after, he launched a thread of 7 tweets where he said, "Responding to the third email today to a person with eco-anxiety, it is not that I caused it, but people have eyes in their faces and heads on their shoulders, and no matter how much hope they want to have, and no matter how much green wishful thinking they crave, their brains still work. They write to me because they are looking for someone they can trust, someone who will not try to win them over with false promises that deep down they realize are only trying to underpin a dying capitalist system for a few more years." But what can I do? Antonio Turiel asked himself in the second of his 7 tweets, and then went on to say, "I can only pick up the pieces from the ground. I can only offer meager hope, only invite sensible and responsible action. I am just a physicist. What do I know what to do in these cases? I am just trying to put some common sense and hope based on logic. But I have the feeling that there is a river that is getting bigger and bigger, a river that is overflowing, a river that threatens to carry away these tiny people, while the opportunists at the moment continue to try to make the most of the situation, while the problems grow to terrifying proportions. Something is moving deep inside. It is big, dark, and powerful, and it is very scary. Turiel confesses and goes on. But we have no right to fear, only to rage. An anger that is courage, that brings out the strength we need not to succumb, to prevail. They need help. I need help. I don't know what I have to do, but I know that I don't have to do it alone. That we don't have to do it alone. I know that useful and productive reaction has to happen, and it has to happen now. Those who know, let them do. Whoever thinks they can help, let them help. Whoever can, let them move forward. Let them take a step forward. I don't know what else I can do. Even worse, I don't know any more to do. But I'll still be there, picking up the pieces. This is how the scientist Antonio Turiel ended his last tweet, a series of tweets that touched my heart. I must confess, to the point that I replied to him. I sent him a tweet privately to tell him that, we had launched this program and that we were going to deal with the issue of eco-anxiety. This is what we are going to talk about today. Eco-anxiety may not affect you at the moment, but it may start to affect you before too long. So, I would suggest you stick with us, because you will find some helpful suggestions here.
Midnight Sun is a radio program that seeks to foster the process of social transformation needed to address the social, climate, and extinction emergency we are now entering. Our goal, that you put your talents at the service of the earth and the terrestrial community of life. Join the tribe at the Midnight Sun, the social media hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
If you are listening, consider yourself part of the tribe. Midnight Sun. We carry on with the eco-anxiety. I am sure some of you remember a quote from Greta Thunberg, the young Scandinavian activist who at a United Nations Assembly in 2019 said, "Adults keep saying, we owe it to the young people to give them hope. But I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. And then I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is." This is nothing but eco-anxiety. Here we have, specifically, an important climate activist who was confessing her eco-anxiety. She was addressing adults, and there is something tragic about certain adults. If you go to the internet and search for the term eco-anxiety, In Spanish and English, you will see that the first entry that appears in Spanish, the second in English, is from a Spanish company called Iberdrola. Well, Iberdrola is one of the 10 Spanish companies, specifically the 8th, that contributes most to climate change with its CO2 emissions. Specifically, in 2020, they emitted almost 3 million tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, and they dare to give advice on eco-anxiety. How else can we describe this apart from greenwashing? One has to have a very hard heart to do this. But what is eco-anxiety? According to the American Psychological Association's definition, it is a chronic fear of environmental cataclysm that comes from observing the seemingly irrevocable impact of climate change and the associated concern for one's future and that of the next generations. What are the symptoms? Well, among others, there can be episodes of anxiety and stress. There can be insomnia, nervous tension, feelings of guilt, feelings of helplessness, of course, and there can also be depression. And especially among young people, it can lead to the decision not to have children in the face of such an uncertain future. Despite all that, at Midnight Sun we will insist on the cultivation of radical hope. We'll now see on what basis we are able to maintain this attitude against all odds. As hard as the times ahead may be, at Midnight Sun we will keep believing that we can still build an alternative future. Our secret, radical hope, however unreal it may seem. Join the tribe of Midnight Sun. Yes, we will keep radical hope, however absurd, however unrealistic it may seem. We will now look at some of the research that has been done on eco-anxiety, as it will be useful for us to understand the problem and how to deal with it. The research I am going to talk about here is referenced in the program credits in the description, so that you can confirm what we say here. We can start with a study carried out by a team of psychologists and physicians from Canada, the team led by Ledger Goodes in 2022, which was published in the academic journal Frontiers in Psychology. In this study on eco-anxiety in children, it was found that eco-anxiety manifests in the form of course, anxiety, depression, sadness, anger, and fear. The researchers commented that children from indigenous communities seemed to be the most emotionally affected, perhaps because of their connection to the earth. In addition, they noted that among the adaptive responses found was a certain constructive hopefulness, which seemed to help them cope with eco-anxiety. In another study from 2020, conducted by health science professionals, also in Canada, led by Judy Wu of the University of British Columbia, a paper entitled Climate Anxiety in Young People, A Call to Action, published in The Lancet, They reported the observation of panic attacks, anxiety disorders, obsessive thinking, and that distress could be combined with other everyday stressors, which could lead to substance abuse, anxiety disorders, and depression. A third study was conducted by researchers from around the world and was published in 2022. It was led by Charles Ogumboat of the University of Nottingham in UK and was entitled Climate Anxiety, Well-Being and Pro-Environmental Action Correlates of Negative Emotional Responses to Climate Change in 32 countries. They investigated how eco-anxiety correlated with pro-environmental behaviors and activism, and found that there was a very strong correlation with environmental action, concluding that eco-anxiety often leads to activism, to people taking control of their lives and trying to do something to mitigate the problem. Another study was conducted in 2021, also with a very large group of researchers, led by Caroline Hickman of the University of Bath in UK. This paper was entitled Climate Anxiety in Children and Young People and Their Beliefs about Government Responses to Climate Change, a Global Survey. It surveyed 10,000 young people aged 16 to 25 from 10 countries in Australia, Brazil, Finland, France, India, Nigeria, the Philippines, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The research also asked about their thoughts and feelings about how they saw their governments behaving. The results were as follows. 59% were very or extremely concerned about climate change. 68% say they were afraid. 63% say they were anxious, and 58% were angry that their governments were not taking appropriate action. 57% felt powerless in the face of the situation, and 51% said they felt guilty, possibly as part of humanity. 3/4 of these young people saw the future as frightening. 64% of them said governments are not doing enough and felt betrayed by them, while half of the young people said their concern about climate change was negatively impacting their lives. And finally, there are already 2 more studies that I think are very significant, even if they don't seem so important in academic terms. The first one is an undergraduate thesis at the University of Vermont in 2021, which interviewed 18 to 21-year-olds and found that action in environmental organizations is an antidote to eco-anxiety. The second is a research study conducted at several Australian universities, published in 2021 and led by Samantha Stanley of the Australian National University. A study entitled From Anger to Action: Differential Impacts of Eco-Anxiety, Eco-Depression, and Eco-Anger on Climate Action and Well-Being. In this work, it was found that eco-anger, rage, is a predictor of improvement in mental health. That is, anger seems to mitigate anxiety, but it also leads to greater involvement in action, in the struggle against climate change, and this is very important. In summary, they pointed out that eco-anxiety and eco-depression have the capacity to mobilize people, but that mobilization and the mitigation of anxiety was increased by anger. So, curiously, action, which would normally produce a significant arousal, in this case produces a calming effect on anxiety. How interesting! The best way to address this anxiety about the future, about climate change, about the global situation, is indeed through action.
According to leading social science research, we need 3.5% of the world's population to put their talents into action if we are to mitigate the effects of the climate and extinction emergency we are facing. And that is the aim of this radio space. Midnight Sun is the communication hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
Fine, but how can we address the problem of eco-anxiety? The NHS, the famous National Health Service of Britain, suggests tackling it with medication and cognitive behavioral therapies. Well, I was a clinical psychologist for 12 years, using specifically cognitive behavioral therapies. I would say that drugs are just patches, which, moreover, can generate secondary alterations. And on the other hand, I would say that even cognitive behavioral therapies are not enough. They can provide some relief, but I think there are other, more effective ways of dealing with eco-anxiety. Let's take a look at them. We could group them into 4 approaches, the first being, of course, action, but action within a community, a group. The suggestion would be, connect with people who think and feel like you, people who are also concerned about this situation, and with them, take action. The good thing about being in a group is that it creates a sense of belonging, that will help you a lot. It is like being part of a family or a tribe, like here, like in Midnight Sun, where we propose that you become part of the tribe of all colors, this tribe of Rainbow Warriors 3.5. In this group of like-minded people, you can do many things. There are many fields of action to choose from. You can devote yourselves to cleaning up natural environments, to restoring natural sites. Maybe you can be part of a social, environmental, or climate movement. You can spread information. There are many things to do in this struggle. And this is a way of responding to that sense of the irrevocability of climate change. It is a way of saying, all right, it looks really bad, but I am going to keep fighting, and we are going to avoid disaster. I am going to do my part in this. On the action aspect, you can also demand that politicians and corporations change their behavior, that they take drastic, urgent measures. You should get involved socially, even if necessary, politically. Not necessarily within a political party, but in social movements or environmental organizations, wherever you feel most at ease. But get involved, demand action from politicians and corporations, and think very carefully about your vote. Your vote is important. Don't vote for parties which are not giving the climate emergency the importance it deserves. Vote for parties that are really going to take urgent and drastic action. The second approach to dealing with eco-anxiety is to adopt a positive attitude. This is why we are emphasizing radical hope here, because adopting a positive attitude is critical. Owen Gaffney, who is an analyst from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research and the Stockholm Resilience Center, says that eco-anxiety is the right response to the scale of the challenge. But I am an optimist. We live in an age where individuals have more power than at any time in history. Look at your sphere of influence, employer, networks, family, and influence them. We don't need to convince 100% of people. only 25%, then an idea can go from marginal to mainstream. Gaffney believes that eco-anxiety is the right response to the climate emergency because it is forcing us to act. The third suggestion for tackling eco-anxiety would be to take small daily actions that have a positive impact on combating the problem. You know, reduce, reuse, recycle, use public transportation. All those little things that we can do, countless things, will help us to feel that we are really doing something, doing our bit. But I attach more importance to what I have said in the first two suggestions: action, joining a group, and radical hope. And finally, the fourth approach to tackling eco-anxiety would be to start building a new civilization, setting up a new lifestyle based on social responsibility, on reducing the carbon footprint. In short, we are not only going to fight climate change, we are not only going to try to force the old world to act, but we are also going to start building the new world, a world that is truly respectful of the earth and her community of life. Perhaps now you understand why I never felt eco-anxiety again after that time when I was translating the Extinction Rebellion presentation slides. I never felt eco-anxiety again because I became deeply involved in action, in surrounding myself with like-minded people, in the hope that we would achieve our goals, that we would avoid disaster, and in building a new civilization. And I am still an activist. I continue to work. I still collaborate with Extinction Rebellion at the international level, and I collaborate with other platforms like Debt for Climate or Shale Must Fall. This is why we offer you from here to join the tribe of all colors of Midnight Sun, the tribe of Rainbow Warriors 3.5, because this is a good place to overcome eco-anxiety, like any other organization or social movement. Although here we are thinking of all those people who do not dare to do civil disobedience, to do non-violent direct actions, to put the body, to stand in front of the police. That is necessary too, but we need a lot more people doing a lot of other work from the real world, putting their talents at the service of the earth and her community of life. That is what Rainbow Warriors 3.5 is all about. That is what Midnight Sun's tribe of all colors is all about. Anyone of any race, any culture, any age, any social class, whatever their beliefs, their job, their occupation, anyone is welcome in this tribe of all colors. A tribe that has as its framework of principles and values the Earth Charter, the most inclusive international document to date. Get to know the Earth Charter. Do you know the Earth Charter? The Earth Charter is an international declaration of ethical principles for the respect and care of life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, democracy, non-violence, and peace. But it is also a worldwide movement which seeks to inspire in all people a new sense of global interdependence and share responsibility for the well-being of the whole human family, the community of life, and future generations, thus becoming a vision of hope and a call to action. Learn more about the Earth Charter at earthcharter.org. Earth Charter, turning conscience into action. Today we have talked about eco-anxiety, a novel phenomenon, specifically because the situation that humanity has created on planet Earth is also novel. Eco-anxiety is an emotional distress about the future, a condition that causes one to feel fear, to feel anxiety about an uncertain and distressing future due to climate change and mass species extinction. We have been talking about the most important research done on the subject, about what the characteristics of eco-anxiety are, and we have seen through this research how we can begin to combat climate anxiety through action and using the energy of anger. Thirdly, we have been talking about how to deal with this situation, obviously through action, but collective action. Don't stand alone. Find like-minded people with the same concerns and organize yourselves to do something useful and productive in the face of the climate crisis. It will also be important to maintain a positive attitude, especially a hopeful one, and to take small everyday actions, such as reusing, recycling, using public transportation, anything you see that can contribute to mitigating the disaster. Don't think that your contribution is insignificant, because the sum of millions of small actions is what matters, like the snowflakes that end up breaking the branch of the tree. And finally, it is also important to start working now on building a new civilization, a sustainable civilization, respectful of the planet and her living community. Finally, we have also been talking about Rainbow Warriors 3.5, the tribe of all colors, which we encourage you to join.
Midnight Sun is the communication hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign, which aims to get 3.5% of the population to put their talents at the service of the Earth and her community of life, in order to mitigate the climate and extinction emergency, and thus prevent the collapse of our civilization. But for that, we need help. Join the Midnight Sun tribe of all colors and become a patron for just $1 a month. Find us on Patrion as Midnight Sun.
And now we say goodbye, one more day from our program, Midnight Sun. Thank you for listening to us. We will try to be here every week. We will try because we don't make a living out of this, and of course, it takes a lot of time to prepare the programs, because we are not only broadcasting in English but also in Spanish. To make such a big tribe, the least we can do is to launch the message in two of the most widely spoken languages in the world. We would like to thank Kim Robertson, who is the Celtic harp player who sets the tune for our program, with her beautiful Greensleeves, which she so delicately plays. I would also like to thank Antonio Turiel for his informative and warning work over so many years, for as much courage and bravery as he has shown, and for the honesty with which he expressed himself in the tweets I reported at the beginning of the program. A brave man who, when he doesn't know how to give advice, acknowledges it and simply says, "In the worst case, I'll pick up your pieces." I think we need many people like Antonio Turiel. I also want to thank John Mario Diaz and Radio Chakaruna in Colombia, which is the first independent radio station that is broadcasting this program. As we have already said, we want this program to be broadcast on every independent radio station in the world, because we need to move 280 million people to get that 3.5% to really bring about change, according to the research. I want to thank Blake Kendall for voicing certain points in the program, and Marta Ventura, who is the soul of Midnight Sun. She is the one who, from the shadows, is at the helm of the Midnight Sun production machine. Finally, a call to action. We must act. Join the Midnight Sun tribe of all colors, and if you can, lend us a hand, even if it is only €1 a month, because otherwise we won't be able to get very far with this program. We end here. May the sun shine for you at midnight.
To avoid the social collapse we are heading towards because of the climate and extinction emergency, we are going to need 3.5% of the population to take action. That means we need help. Lots of help. If you have an independent radio station and want to share Midnight Sun's radio programs on it, find out more at midnightsun.com.es/broadcasting. Midnight Sun, the social media hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
Midnight Sun, el sol de medianoche.